And here we are again today in Empowered Soul Network. And I have the very distinct pleasure of interviewing a person who actually talked with a little bit earlier in the week. And such a beautiful, poignant journey and story that she has. I want to welcome Amy Thurman. You're calling in from Norman, Oklahoma. We're
That's right.
Midwest people,
Yes,
salt of
that's
the
right.
earth.
Yeah,
Yes, that's so
exactly.
great. Amy is the founder and host of a podcast called Polish the Mirror, which is very intriguing. She's going to share a little bit about that. She's a best-selling author. She's a digital creator and an inspirational speaker. And I think you're going to be very inspired today by hearing Amy's story and how she's assisting and helping people. So, Amy, welcome.
Oh, Paul, thank you so much for that introduction and for having me. I'm just so happy to be here. It's an honor to be here with you. Thank you.
Well, the right back at you. It's a pleasure. So, Amy, you have your book and Polish the Mirror. You can see it behind her, Polish the Mirror there. It all hinges around a journey that you've had, among other things, your life story, but especially something that's gone on for you these last many months. And if you wouldn't mind, tell us the story. And guys, listen to this because you're going to be able to apply some of the hints and tips that Amy has for thriving in the midst of the challenges. So share with us a
Oh,
little bit, Amy.
oh, of course. Thank you. It was in 2014. I am a mom, have three kids. I was running my kids around everywhere, working at a major university, spending lots of time doing all the things. And literally the very next day, I couldn't take care of myself. So I got up during the night and just felt sick. And I ended up passing out and I landed on my face on the hardwood floor. And that impact sheared my brainstem, caused a traumatic brain injury, and it actually broke my neck. But it took my doctor 6 months to figure out my neck was broken. So the first sort of nearly a first year after the accident, I had to lay flat in a bed for 23 hours a day. I couldn't walk, I couldn't talk, I couldn't hear or see correctly. It's very emotional for me. I appreciate your understanding when the emotions come because that's just part of the journey. Um, couldn't do anything. And so I couldn't even take myself to the restroom. And I completely missed that entire year of my kids' lives. My daughter was a senior in high school. My son was a freshman in high school. And my younger son was 4 years old. And I missed that entire year of their lives. And so, as you can imagine, I am an extremely independent person. Like, I want to do things for myself. I don't want to ask for help. I don't want people to help me. And so, just not being able to do anything for myself was like a form of torture for me. And so, as you can imagine, I went into this deep, deep, dark place that I would never, ever wish on anyone. And I started to pray. And I prayed that I would die because I was not living. I was merely existing. And everyone was having to do everything for me. I felt like such a burden to my family. And so I knew that I had to do something about it. And I knew that I had enough pain medication to make it happen. And I fully intended to do that. Had a plan, worked it all out. And when you're in that dark place, you don't really think clearly. Like if you've ever been there, you just don't think clearly. And the only way I can describe this is I had this moment of clarity where all of a sudden I just remember thinking, what if I don't have to die? What if I can make a different choice? What if I take the same energy I'm using so hard trying to die and I flip it around and use it to fight to live instead? And if I do that and I can get better, maybe I can use my experience to help other people. So it was literally in that moment that I shifted my mindset and started to fight to live with the intention of using my story to help other people. That's what I do. That's what I do now because I've lived the past 10 years with a broken neck. Like it just has never healed. So I've lived with a broken neck for 10 years. I'm unable to work. And so this has become my mission now, just using my story to help other people.
Wow, I mean, I was getting goosebumps. My chills had goosebumps. You know, the feeling of the power and of the desire of the soul, you
Yeah.
know, to do I go here or do I go there? And so that incentive of wanting to keep going forward from the surviving, that's what I hear you saying. Um, that brings hope to people. Is that right? The
That's,
feeling of that?
yeah, it's exactly right. It was in my book, I talk about how it was a mixture of desperation and hope. They can't exist together, but they were
Mhm.
battling. Like those two emotions were battling it out, and hope ended up winning. And it's not something that you just like at the time. I didn't know that's what was happening, but I have learned so much about emotion since then that I can now recognize that that's what was happening. And the hope was just stronger. The hope just was meant to be there.
Can you unpack hope for us a little bit? Because sometimes people say, I have no hope. I can't find hope. I can't. What happens as you've observed not only in yourself, but maybe other people that maybe have reached out to you because of your story? Unpack hope for us a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I've heard from a lot of people because I've shared my story a lot of different ways. And really, what it boils down to is people don't feel like they have a choice. When they say I don't have hope or I don't feel hope, they feel like they don't have a choice or they don't know which direction to go because they don't know which choice to make. And so I say this all the time on my podcast that we always have a choice. Like even the times when you feel like I have no choice. Like Amy, you don't know what my life is like. You can't tell me I have a choice. I can tell you if you will look at it from a different perspective, step back away from it, look at it from a different perspective, you will see you always have a choice. You always have a choice. It may not be one you want to make, but there is always a choice there waiting for you on one side or the other. And to me, that's where the lack of hope comes from is not being able to see choice.
I mean, this is very inspirational to me because I can resonate with it in the work, all my work over the years.
Yeah.
Take it the next step. Unpack for us the energy of making a choice. How does a person start defining A and B and C and so on?
It's, I didn't tell this story at the beginning, but I'll tell it now. This is where Polish the Mirror came from. When I was in that bed for almost a year, could do nothing for myself. When I decided to fight to live, I knew that I could not continue with the negativity that was happening in my mind. I would not get better if I continued thinking the way I was thinking. So I knew I had to change that. But not only did I have to change it, I had to replace it with something, which is a whole different story. But so I started listening to podcasts and audiobooks, turned it down really low so my brain could handle it. And so I started listening to Dr. Wayne Dyer, Tony Robbins, Rumi, all of those luminaries, and I was introduced to the wisdom of Rumi. And this quote just resonated with me so deeply. It is what I live now. And it goes like this: Ye who seek God apart, that which you seek thou art. If you wish to seek the beloved's face, polish there and gaze into that space. So that spoke to me on a deep level. And it told me that every answer I seek can be found within, that I don't have to look outside myself for all of these things to come help me and to come rescue me. Everything I need can be found within. It doesn't mean we need help. It doesn't mean we're not part of a community. But when we can polish the mirror and take care of ourselves, then we become better community members and we can help others better. And I shared all that to say that when we're talking about a choice, so much. I mean, this was my life that I was so afraid to mess up. Like I didn't want to make the wrong choice because I thought that if that's not the path for me, I don't want to screw that up. I make the right choice and just freak myself out because I didn't know what the right choice was. And so what I'm sharing with you is that that power that we all have within, there is no right or wrong. Whatever choice you make is going to take you on the path that leads you to where you're supposed to go. So that's a long answer, but I hope that answered your question.
No, absolutely did. And so I want people to imagine that they're doing this. When you polished your mirror and you looked into it the first time as you were beginning that process of awakening again, if you will.
Yeah.
And you looked in the mirror. What did you see? Describe, what did you see in the mirror, Amy?
Well, first of all, I did not want to look into my eyes. That's a thing that most people, when I ask that and when I do workshops and I say, what happens when you look yourselves in the eyes? Almost everybody says it freaks me out. That's the typical thing. But once we learn to polish the mirror of our lives and get in touch with our authentic selves and our souls, we can look into our eyes with love. The eyes are the window to the soul. That's what you're seeing when you look into your eyes, is your soul. And so when I polished that mirror for the first time, I was avoiding my feelings. I was avoiding feeling my feelings because I didn't want to feel them. And we do this. We pack them down, we shove them down, we push them down so that we don't have to experience them because sometimes they don't feel good. And so the first step for me was I had to be willing to feel my feelings. They're serving a purpose. Our feelings can be a tool for us, and emotions can be a tool for us if we know how to use them. The research shows, which I could talk about this all day, but I know we need to move on. The research shows that when an emotion surfaces, it only lasts 90 seconds if we allow it to serve its purpose, then it dissipates and moves on. But if we hold on to it and keep it in that emotional loop, then it becomes a hurdle for us to overcome. But it only lasts 90 seconds if we'll allow it to do its job, allow it to send the message that it is intended to send us, and then we can move on.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, it's
The
wild, right?
yeah, it's just amazing, the energy of becoming real, becoming accepting. I hear you say there's a piece of this where I hear you, I need to accept where I am. I need to start here. This is where I am. Speak to that just a little bit. Acknowledging here.
Yeah, absolutely. I call it self love versus soul love. When we talk about self love, because everybody's promoting self love. Heck, I even have a resource that I wrote that's called 10 Ways to Show Yourself Self Love. So it's important, but we should really be promoting soul love because here's the difference: the self is influenced and tainted by external expectations. Everything that we've been taught, everything we've learned, grown up learning about, that is impacting the self. And the self is self driven. When we talk about the soul, it is completely love driven. It's all about love. It will lead you to love every single. Self will lead you to fear. The soul will lead you to love. And so there's a huge difference there. Self is who you are now, soul is who you're meant to be. And so there's an acceptance there of, and it takes some digging. Like it's a simple process, but it's not easy because you got to dig through all that stuff that you're using to to push that soul down because it's so raw, it's so vulnerable. It's it there's a lot of stuff there. So there's an acceptance of both of them. Does that make sense?
Hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So as you were talking about that, I was reminded of the children. There's been so many quotes about, kids, the book, everything I need to know in life, I learned in kindergarten,
Right.
right? Biblically, lest you become as little children, you won't enter the kingdom of heaven. There's just been so many things that soul, that pure soul that's untainted by the outer programming. And then I started thinking about your children, your loved ones. What have you seen their journey, having been involved in your journey? How have you
It's so
seen that energy? Yeah,
It's so interesting you ask me because there's a whole chapter in my book there I talk about this.
yeah.
Um, that at first I did not want to know how it impacted them because I didn't want to take responsibility for that. I could not be there. It was literally like I was dead to them for an entire year. And so they were really having to become adults, make adult level decisions. They couldn't share their personal spaces with anyone because it was like living in a nursing home in our home. And so I felt so guilty. This void I thought was that I was creating for them. I finally decided recently when I decided to write this book that I wanted to know, like, okay, I need to know what the impact has been for them. And Paul, I was shocked by what they shared with me. What they ended up sharing with me was how instrumental that experience has been in making them who they are today. They are resourceful, they are compassionate, they are caring, they are very mature. They have learned so much and they are able to make their way in this world because they were forced to. Does that make sense? And so they ended up thanking me for not only asking them about it and wanting to know, but for allowing them that opportunity. And because of that, it has weaved a very, very tight knit relationship between us. We are all so fit now that we have just been so. When you go through trauma with someone else, it just bonds you in the way. It either drives you apart or it bonds you together. And it ended up bonding us together. And so in the book, I call it an unexpected gift because that's what it was for them. That's the way they see it. And, you would not think that that would be the case. But yeah, it's just so fascinating to me.
It sounds like that it became soul to soul
Yeah,
with the energy, right? How does that
exactly.
how does that feel to really be able to relate with people and connect soul to soul?
It's I talk about this too in my workshops that I have learned through all of this and through, learning to polish the mirror of my life, that I have learned to see people as a soul that just happens to live in a body rather than a body that just happens to have a soul. And so when I see people and when I talk to them, I connect with their souls because I've learned and I've taught myself how to do that. And it's interesting because people tell me all the time, I could listen to you talk all day. I don't know why, but I said, tell my kids that, but it's because I'm connect with their souls. And I have a friend, I speak on stages and do that kind of thing. And one of my friends was going on to speak and she was frazzled, all frazzled. And so I just walked up to her and I put my hand on her shoulder and I said, good morning. And she whipped around, her eyes were wide, and she said, oh my gosh, Amy. And I said, oh shoot, what have I done? She said, my body was just so frazzled and freaked out. And as soon as you touched me and as soon as I heard your voice, it instantly calmed. And I didn't say this, but I knew it's because I connected with her soul. I wasn't seeing her as a person. I was connecting with her soul because her soul calmed her down. Her soul knew what she needed in that moment, and it just needed to be acknowledged. And so, it gives that kind of impact. It's not magic. I'm just like everybody else. I'm not something fancy or something special. I'm just like everybody else. I've just been through some stuff and learned some things along the way. And so I take such joy in being able to share that with other people because it's possible for everyone. It's not just me, it's possible for everyone.
You again, there's so many thoughts that you're stimulating me to rotate around. And one of the things that just came to me now is there's a certain energy, if you will, and I think it's a soul expression, not a self expression of patience. When I mean you're going through 10 years of this, there's no way to not have to exercise some patience to take the next step, to go to here, to go to there, to go to the next place.
Yeah.
And do you feel like, and can you speak to the energy of allowing and letting it flow, letting the healing take place that takes some patience? Because when I think about people watching this and well, that's great, but how do I do that when the kids are yelling and screaming? The soul thing is the last part of my mind. Or there's the toxic work environment and there's bullying happening. How do I maintain that soul consciousness in the midst of all that? Seems like patience is a little bit, but what are some of the secrets for you when you're out in the chaos of the world out there?
Yeah, it's, when I was growing up, my mom used to tell me all the time, stop being so hard-headed. And, now I think determined is a better word for it. I have just always been a very determined person. And literally, I'm trying to think how many years it took. It was 7 years. And I'm on my seventh neurologist. Like I just kept pushing and pushing and pushing and not giving up because, Paul, I had this inner knowing. It took them 6 years to figure out why I passed out in the first place. But I had this inner knowing that somebody's missing. And so through all these specialists I went to, everybody would find one thing, but I kept knowing there's just something more, more, more. And so 7 years of that, when they figured out that my neck, where it was injured exactly, it was like I had pushed for so long and wasn't going to give up, but as soon as I found that out, it was like, okay, I think yeah, okay, I think this is it. I don't think I can do this. Like I can't keep fighting anymore. I mean, I could, but like I knew that it was time. I knew that, and it has taken, let's see, that was 7 years ago. So that's taken me 3 years, well, actually 2 years, to really accept that this is my life now. I live with a broken neck. I have limitations. I can only hold my head up for a few hours at a time. I have to rest and lay down throughout the day. I can't walk very far. There are a lot of things I can't do, but I don't focus on that. I focus on the things that I can do. And it's the learning to allow that, okay, this is what it's going to be. Why am I fighting it? I'm now going to allow it and work with the things that I can do. And ever since I have done that, my world has like just exploded. Like I'm working on this TED talk, I'm writing this book, I'm in this other book, all this stuff is like just flowing when I decided to just allow it to be what it is. Yes, I fought it for 7 years. It served its purpose, but it's time to allow it to be what it is. And I can't tell you the difference it has made in my life. And I know that's not possible for everyone. It took me 7 years to get to that point. And so that's what I'm saying, that um, it's definitely something that you have to work through. It's a simple
Hmm.
thing, but not easy. I say that all the time.
Yeah, I think the clue there for me is finding the ways to, you said the words, find the ways to work with the chaos rather than fight against the chaos. How can
Yeah.
I work with the crying child that's upset or mad at me as the parent who's setting boundaries? How can I work with it rather than pushing back against it? That's a
Yeah.
huge clue there and an energy and tip, I think, don't you think, Amy?
Yeah, absolutely. Because it does take a shift in your mindset, because to think of it from a different perspective, like, oh my gosh, my life is just horrible. All these things are going wrong. Okay, wait just a minute. It's exactly what I said earlier. Take a different perspective, look at it from a different perspective, and see how you can use that, like you and I said, to work with you instead of against you. And it can be changing when you take that approach.
It's almost like polish the mirror and look at it. Okay, how would I work with myself if I were having those challenges?
Yeah. Oh, I
Yeah,
love that. Yeah.
okay, here's this person I'm looking at. They're upset. How would I help them?
Yeah.
Lots of mirrors, right? Tons
I
of mirrors
know.
out there.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's the thing with the mirror. It's a reflection. The purpose of the mirror is to show our reflection. And just one quick story. Well, I'll just
Yeah,
make it
yeah, go
short.
ahead.
um, the we trying to rein it in so I can make um when we talk to someone or interact with someone, most of the time their response to us is a reflection of the energy we're sending. It's a direct reflection. And so people would tell me horror stories of when I went to before the judge to try to get my disability approved, and all these other horror stories. I did not have that experience. And I know it was because the energy I was sending out, the energy with which I was approaching the situation was just not the same, and that they were reflecting the energy that I was sending out. So that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Yeah, basic, it's the law of attraction. Some people
Yeah.
think the law of attraction is I'm going to attract all these good things coming to me but if I'm putting out stuff that is adverse to that, the attraction can happen. What I
Yeah.
put out, I get back, right? No, that's beautiful,
Absolutely.
Amy. Wow. I mean, I could talk to you all day. Yes, I could. This is just wonderful and fascinating. Tell us how we get in touch with you, the title of the book, and how we can listen to Polishment, and we'll put that at the bottom in the comments so people can reach out to you. But could you tell us verbally how can we reach you?
Yeah, of course. My book is called Finding My Hero Within: A Journey from Incapacitation to Empowerment. And it's going to be available in April, which is next month. And you can go to my website, which is www.getamyshelp.com, and just scroll down. There's a place for you to enter your information so I can send you the link when it's available for you to order. And then my podcast is on all of the streaming platforms. I also do it live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, all the things. Then I upload the audio to all the podcast streaming platforms. And you can just search Polish the Mirror and find it there.
Well, there you go. This is a big giant. Here's your mirror opportunity, everybody. There's
Yeah.
a book, there's a podcast, there's fit. You will see yourself if you connect with Amy Thurman. Amy, thank you so much for being on with us today. Just love this. That 30 minutes felt like a minute, and I just appreciate so much you telling your story. Stick around for just a minute, and we'll kind of regroup after we get done streaming. And there you go, everybody. Powered Soul Network. There is another amazing story, and we've got more coming up still today. So stay tuned. Amy, thank you. Love and
Yeah.
light.
Thank you so much, Paul. Appreciate
Talk
it.
to you soon.